My husband, 34-year-old male, and I, 32-year-old female, have been together for 6 years and now have a 10-month-old baby. I moved out here to the Bay Area from the East Coast for him and our life together. I feel as if I have made a lot of sacrifices on my end, and am starting to become resentful towards my husband and in-laws. For background context, I come from an immigrant family raised poor and have done very well for myself. I was the first one in my entire extended family to go to college, and still the only one to be a collegiate athlete. I have worked since I was 14 at any hosting, waitressing gig that I could find. To this day, I still help support my family financially, as most eldest children of immigrants do. Regardless, I managed to save up $250,000 by age 27. I fell in love with my husband at that age and decided to move out to him after a year and a half of making long-distance work. We were both on the same page of what we wanted in life with family, etc. My now husband, however, is a white male with a relatively privileged background in comparison. Moving 3,000 miles from everything I knew was hard for sure, but I jumped in and made it work and found a way. After moving to California, I found a good-paying job in a new industry career I wanted to pursue after only 3 months. And quickly in 5 years, I am now able to make annually what I had originally saved up. As I'm sure everyone knows, affording living in California is no easy feat, but with my large lump savings, it has allowed us to become homeowners. After having a baby, however, the stress of finances and reliable help has heightened. Daycare for a 40-hour work week is $3,000, $4,000 a month in my area, and as hard as I've researched, there is nothing, and I wish I was exaggerating, under $2,900 a month. Before taxes are taken out, that is easily the equivalent of a $60,000, $70,000 job. My mother-in-law is a retired preschool teacher of almost 40 years. Part of the reasoning of my move was to have my mother-in-law around to help raise our babies. She seems like a perfect fit, right? We weighed out all 3 options: move to him, move to me, or move somewhere new entirely. We both wanted to be close to family and decided that my husband's place would be the most ideal. He also kind of guilt-tripped me into agreeing that since they were older than my parents, and it's best to spend more time with them, as we'll have more time with my mom later. My mother-in-law, however, is the most passive-aggressive person I have ever met, but only to me. She has 2 sons, and I am married to the youngest. She doesn't have a good relationship with her other daughter-in-law, but would literally suck her weenie to get her approval. I have always gone above and beyond to be kind and giving to her. In comparison to her other daughter-in-law, I am a complete 180. She has a key and an open-door policy to my place. I converse and spend time with her for hours, and I constantly cook and/or buy dinner for them on a weekly basis. I am thoughtful and buy all the family's presents for all holidays and birthdays. When the men are around, she is the sweetest thing, but when it's just us, she always throws the most jabs at me. From saying things like, "Oh my, you sure you're not going to break your ankle in those shoes? Or are you just trying to get attention? Wow, more food, are you trying to make me fat or outdo me? Is that new? I've never seen it. Do you have a shopping addiction, hee-hey?" To even, "I'm not sure we need you around here making us look bad. Are you sure you don't miss the East Coast?" I take it in the chin with a smile on my face and always change the subject, as I was always taught to not talk back to my elders. My husband told that she was going to take care of the baby once it's time for me to go back to work. Weeks before that time came, she started talking about how busy she was with volunteering and sending daycare recommendations our way as a hint. When she and my husband had that talk, everything seemed fine as she started watching the baby 5 times a week. I'm the one who does the drop-off and pick-up, however, and I have to hear it every day, 2 times a day. To her son, she only says how happy and lucky she is to get to spend time with her granddaughter, etc. To me, she is saying how it takes up so much of her time and it's boring watching a baby. My husband doesn't even believe me. After sacrificing my family, which I miss so deeply, my friends, and even my passion in life, which was coaching youth sports just to jump into the corporate nonsense world because I recognized quickly that's what it would take to live comfortably out here, I'm drained. All my money, time, efforts, and energy have gone into him and his family, pretty much, and I can't even get the support I was promised. Honestly, it would have been easy for me to just buy a house straight up for $250,000 on the East Coast, have no mortgage, just coach, and make a little money. But it was what made me happy, and have my mom around who would happily help with our babies around. Instead, I've given it all to this man for this situation, and for my mother-in-law to constantly complain about how much I do for you, instead of recognizing how much I've done for her son. It infuriates me. My mother would view this as a privilege, not a burden, and cries every time we have to FaceTime. My mother-in-law has asked me to take a day or two off work every week, or make sure you try to be here by 2 when my show starts, and I'm at a breaking point. I've been sneaking into work late and getting out early for months now, just to ease her load. But I'm struggling at work, and it's noticeable in my results now. I also make more money than my husband by 6 figures and have the financial pressures on my back. One day, I snapped back with, "That's something you're gonna need to talk to your son about," and all hell broke loose. My husband came home pissed that I had said so many derogatory things to his mom, shamed her for not being a good enough caretaker, the works. She then said she needed space, and I took a week off work in order to take care of the baby. I went to try and smooth things over with her after a couple of days, and found her incredibly hammered at 9 a.m. in the morning. Stumbling on her words and feet, my father-in-law came out looking mortified and tried to hide her back in her room. I figured she was upset and left it at that, only to try to go back the next morning to the same thing. After talking to my husband, he finally tells me that she is a struggling alcoholic and has been for 50 years. He says, "But she's a functioning alcoholic, so she just needs to get this intense period out of her system, she'll bounce back." The rage and disbelief I had with both the situation and my husband were out of control. Was she drinking while watching the baby? You knew about this and put our daughter in that situation? To save money on daycare, you let our daughter there knowingly? Functioning? What the frick? Was all her nonsense a way to get distance so she could drink? The more I thought back, there were definitely days where I just thought she was more loopy than others. Was that her drinking a moderate amount? After talking to my sister-in-law, it was, and she has been drinking every day without a day off for the last 20 years, and that's why they had a tainted relationship. I didn't talk to my husband for days, and started looking for other homes on the East Coast closer to my family. After a couple of days, I sat him down and only said this: "Here are other homes we can move to, or you get another job to cover the bills, or I'm reporting all of you to CPS, and there is no more us and our family." It feels harsh. So am I the jerk for bluntly dropping this ultimatum on my husband? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, however, these people telling you to run back to the East Coast don't understand how custody works. Girl, get yourself a lawyer and start coming up with a plan that protects you and your baby. You can't just take the kid back east, and for damn sure, don't be leaving your baby with that alcoholic mother-in-law. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Your husband really brings nothing to the table. It is time to stop letting them treat you as a second-class citizen. File for divorce and child support and move back to where your family is. If you don't, this is your life for as long as you live. Don't you think you deserve better? Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post and for all the support and advice. It's been a tough few days since I found out about my mother-in-law's alcoholism and confronted my husband about it. The day after I gave my husband the ultimatum, he came home from work and told me he had talked to his boss about getting a raise or finding a higher-paying job. He said he understood how serious the situation was and that he wanted to do whatever it took to keep our family together. I was relieved to hear that he was taking action, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Later that evening, while I was putting the baby to bed, I overheard my husband on the phone with his brother. He was talking about how he had lied to me about speaking with his boss and that he had no intention of getting a new job or moving. He said he was just trying to buy time until I calmed down and that he was sure I would come around eventually. I was shocked and hurt by his deception. The next morning, I confronted him about what I had heard. He tried to deny it at first, but eventually admitted that he had lied to me. He said he didn't want to leave his family and friends behind and that he thought I was overreacting about his mother's drinking. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could he not take this seriously? Our daughter's safety was at stake. I decided to take matters into my own hands and started looking for a new place to live. I found a small apartment on the East Coast near my family that I could afford on my own. I knew it would be a struggle, but I was willing to do whatever it took to protect my daughter. When I told my husband about my plans, he begged me not to go. He promised to get help for his mother and to find a way to make things work. But I had heard it all before. I knew that unless he was willing to make some real changes, nothing would be different. In the end, I decided to move out with our daughter. It was the hardest decision I've ever had to make, but I knew it was the right one. My husband was devastated, but I told him that until he could prove to me that he was serious about putting our family first, I couldn't trust him. It's been a few days since I moved out, and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. I miss my husband and the life we had together, but I know I made the right choice for our daughter. I'm grateful for the support of my family and friends during this difficult time. Looking back, I realized that there were signs of my mother-in-law's drinking problem that I had ignored. The way she would sometimes slur her words or stumble when she walked. The way she would become more aggressive and critical of me after a few drinks. I wish I had paid more attention and spoken up sooner. I also realize now that my husband had been enabling his mother's behavior for years. He had grown up with her drinking and had learned to make excuses for her. He didn't want to face the reality of the situation because it was too painful. As for me, I know I have a long road ahead. Starting over in a new place with a young child is never easy. But I'm determined to make it work. I'm focusing on my job and my daughter, and I'm taking things one day at a time. Thank you all again for your support and understanding. Writing out my story has been therapeutic for me, and I appreciate all of the kind words and advice. I know I'm not alone in this struggle, and that gives me hope for the future. Am I the idiot for calling the cops on my baby's father and his mom for inappropriate behavior, posting anonymously on a throwaway account to protect my identity? I am seriously losing my mind, guys, and I apologize if I am all over the place. I am panicking and I don't know what to do. I am a 19-year-old female. I just gave birth 2 weeks ago to my daughter. My baby's dad and his family, especially his mom, have been super controlling of my interactions with my baby since I gave birth. If I try putting her in a cute outfit, they get extremely upset about it and dress her in something else. If I go to change her diaper, my baby's dad pushes me out of the way and says he's going to do it. Yesterday, after her first bath, which he insisted on doing and wouldn't let me, I went to brush her hair with her soft brush, and he got angry. He said, "This is my daughter. I'm doing it." They won't even let me breastfeed because they think it will prevent her from bonding with her dad. I was living with his family, as it is considered normal in their culture. However, yesterday morning, they had taken my daughter downstairs, and when I walked into the living room 10 minutes later, he and his mom were changing my daughter's diaper. He said, "Look at you, you're so cute." She didn't have her diaper on. I quietly left the room and called the cops. I'm terrified of these people and feeling very vulnerable. So I snuck out and called the cops. I provided an explanation, gave them the address, and informed them that I had to get off the phone and go back into the room. When I re-entered the room, his mom was calling my daughter a sexy girl. She had her diaper back on at this point. Anyway, the cops arrived, and I took my daughter and sat next to the cop car. I gave my statement. They asked if there was anywhere I could go, so I had my mom come and get us. Throughout the entire time the cops were there, my ex and his mom were screaming at me. They were saying that my baby is a native baby. I will get what's coming to me, they will win in court, and I will never see my kid again because I am unstable. I tried telling the cops that I needed to be admitted to the hospital for mental health reasons and that I wasn't safe around the baby. When the cop asked him why he called my daughter sexy while changing her diaper, he blamed it on their culture. He said that "you people," referring to white people, are the ones who make it weird. He claimed that we were the ones with the wrong mindset and that he didn't mean it in an intimacy way. Now I am at my mom's place. He doesn't know where she lives, so that's one positive aspect. The cops basically told me that they would investigate it, but it probably won't go very far, so I will have to build a case for court. Am I losing my mind? Is this really a cultural difference? Am I in the wrong for calling the cops over this? He's Puerto Rican and Native American, now. For a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. I'm freaking out for you, knowing they prevented you from breastfeeding your baby. You are the mother, the one who gave birth, so his family has no right to stop you. As for the father, he needs to understand that you are from your own family and culture, and your baby should have both, not just his. This family sounds creepy, and I would try to find somewhere else to stay to protect your rights as her mother. Comment 2, not the idiot. Regardless of the word used, during the actual act of a diaper change is an inappropriate time to comment on a baby's appearance. I think you'll have a tough time in court, but I applaud you for removing your child from the situation. Now, for the update, hey everyone, thanks for reading. It's been interesting to say the least 3 months since my last post, and I've been struggling to process everything that's happened. After leaving my ex's family's house with my daughter and staying at my mom's place, I thought things would start to settle down. However, just a few days later, my ex showed up at my mom's house demanding to see our daughter. He was angry and aggressive, shouting that I had no right to keep her from him. My mom tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't listen. Eventually, he left, but not before threatening to take me to court for full custody. Over the next few weeks, I received several threatening messages from my ex and his family. They accused me of being an unfit mother and claimed that I was trying to keep our daughter from her native heritage. I was terrified and didn't know what to do. I reached out to a lawyer who specializes in family law, hoping to get some guidance on how to proceed. Meanwhile, I was struggling to bond with my daughter. Every time I looked at her, I was reminded of the disturbing things my ex and his mother had said and done. I felt like a failure as a mother and was constantly on edge, worried that they would try to take her away from me. As the weeks turned into months, the legal battle with my ex intensified. He filed for full custody, claiming that I was mentally unstable and unfit to care for our daughter. I was devastated and felt like I was being punished for trying to protect my child. During this time, I learned more about my ex's family history. His mother had a history of mental illness and had been in and out of psychiatric hospitals for years. His father had been hurtful towards her and had even served time in prison for domestic violence. This new information made me even more concerned for my daughter's safety and well-being. Despite my best efforts to prove that I was a capable and loving mother, the court ultimately decided to grant my ex joint custody. I was devastated and felt like I had failed my daughter. I couldn't bear the thought of her being alone with him and his family, knowing what they were capable of. The first time my ex had our daughter for his scheduled visitation, I was a nervous wreck. I couldn't sleep or eat, constantly worrying about what might be happening to her. When he finally brought her back, I was relieved to see that she was okay, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Over the next few weeks, I noticed changes in my daughter's behavior. She was more withdrawn and seemed afraid of me at times. I tried to talk to her about what was going on, but she wouldn't open up. I felt helpless and didn't know what to do. One day, while changing my daughter's diaper, I noticed bruises on her inner thighs. I felt sick to my stomach and immediately took her to the hospital. The doctors confirmed my worst fears. She had been sexually abused. I was devastated and couldn't stop blaming myself for not protecting her. The police launched an investigation, and my ex was arrested and charged with child abuse. I was granted full custody of my daughter, but the damage had already been done. She was traumatized and would need extensive therapy to heal from the abuse she had suffered. Looking back, I realized that I should have fought harder to keep my daughter away from my ex and his family. I should have trusted my instincts and not let anyone make me feel like I was overreacting or being too protective. I know now that I did the right thing by calling the police that day, but I wish I had done more to prevent the abuse from happening in the first place. My daughter and I are now living with my mom, trying to heal and move forward. It's been a long and difficult road, but I'm determined to do whatever it takes to keep her safe and help her recover from the trauma she's experienced. I know that we have a long way to go, but I'm grateful for the support of my family and friends, and I'm hopeful that we'll come out of this stronger and more resilient than ever. Thank you for reading and for all of your support during this difficult time. Am I the idiot for demanding changes in my mother-in-law's house before agreeing to save it from foreclosure? 1. She will be getting rid of her dog. 2. She and her boyfriend are not to reprimand my children at all, and they will be expected to come tell me or my husband if my children are doing something wrong. 3. There will be a list of people who are not allowed at the house, their family and their friends. 4. My husband, my children, and I will be treated with respect at all times, and I will not be treated like a child. 5. My husband and I will absolutely be put on the deed as the main deed holder before we move in. 6. If any of these demands are not held to the highest standard, I will be withdrawing. Story. My mother-in-law, Mill, is getting up there in age. Not old, 66, but her health isn't the best. She has recently asked us to move in with her because she can no longer work, has zero retirement fund, and can't get around like she used to. She needs help, and we are the only ones who can help her. She has until the end of the month to pay off $12,000 in back taxes before her home goes to foreclosure. My mother-in-law, by herself, is a kick-ass woman. I love her to bits. But she's a people pleaser to the extreme, and it has absolutely made her fall into situations that I will never be okay with putting myself in. Her boyfriend is 66 years old, Mason, a felon, due to his continuous drunk driving charges. He just got out of prison last year after 6 years on the inside, and he is already right back into drinking all day, every day. He got drunk one night back 8 months ago and decided to go and adopt a 5-year-old Rottweiler Mastiff mix, and then failed to make any attempt to train the animal. It is now food aggressive, kennel aggressive, toy aggressive, and resource guards everything. He is aggressively protective over my mother-in-law, so the dog would have to go. Under no circumstances will I make an exception on this. My children are small, one crawling, and that animal will not get the opportunity to maul my children. Dog stays, we do not move in, period. Mason also has an old-school style of parenting, and on more than one occasion has tried to father my children in angry, outdated parenting-style ways. Hence why I said neither he nor my mother-in-law will reprimand/discipline any of my children in any way, shape, or form. I stated my name will be put on the deed prior to moving in, because it will be me and my husband forking over the money to save their home, and frankly, I don't trust Mason to not try and kick us out after we do so. So if we are not put as the main deed holder, we will not be moving in, and she can lose her home. As for the limit on who is allowed at the house, Mason has a family member who is a convicted child toucher. The girl was 4 years old. He went to prison for 13 years, that he hangs out with often. He seems to think that since the man is in a wheelchair, he is now harmless. Absolutely not. He is not welcome at the home. As for them treating us with respect under all circumstances and not treating me like a child, there have been several times where Mason and my mother-in-law have tried making decisions for me and my husband or told us what to do, and I will not tolerate it. I will give more detailed info if you guys need it, but this is the breakdown anyhow. I presented them the list of demands yesterday and said either my demands are followed or this arrangement will not happen. Mason and mother-in-law are both saying that the list makes them feel as though they are children/guests of their own home and feel like I've now decided I'm going to control their lives and have asked to make changes. As in, they want to keep the dog and have stated that we will just find a way to keep the dog separate from us. Nope. Mason also wants his family member to be allowed here, but has stated he will keep them in their portion of the house and away from my kids. Nope. They also feel they should be able to reprimand and discipline my children if they are doing something wrong. If it is within reason, nope. I told them they can speak to the parent and that's final. I said I'm not budging. My sister-in-law seems to think I'm being ridiculous. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, are you trying to get CPS to take your children? This is where you want them to live. A home with a felon, DUIs, aggressive dog you know will not be rehomed, a child toucher you know will be allowed in the home, a mother-in-law who totally lacks the ability to say no, a felon who is an old-school disciplinarian who has tried to discipline your kids in the past, a house almost in foreclosure. Need I go on? What on God's green earth would make you think you should risk your nuclear family's safety and security for an adult who has consistently shown you she can't handle adulthood? Comment 2. While your rules don't sound unreasonable given your explanation, I highly doubt they will actually adhere to the rules once you've paid off the tax lien. If the house is sold for taxes, how much equity will be left for the mother-in-law to live on? Why isn't your sister-in-law taking her mother in or moving in with her? The real question here, does your husband have your back here, or is he also a people pleaser who will, when push comes to shove, take his mom's side? Now, for the update. Thank you for all the comments on my last post. It's been pretty up and down of a few days since I presented my list of demands to my mother-in-law, MIL, and her boyfriend Mason. After some heated discussions and a lot of back and forth, we've finally come to an agreement that works for everyone. First and foremost, the dog is being rehomed. It was a tough decision for Mason, but he ultimately realized that the safety of my children had to come first. He's found a friend who has experience with aggressive dogs and is willing to take on the challenge of training and rehabilitating the Rottweiler Mastiff mix. It's a bittersweet moment, but I'm relieved that we won't have to worry about any potential incidents with the kids. As for the disciplining of my children, mother-in-law and Mason have agreed to defer to me and my husband. If they notice any misbehavior, they'll come to us first and we'll handle it as we see fit. It's a compromise that respects our role as parents while still allowing them to voice their concerns. The list of people not allowed at the house has been a bit more contentious. Mason was initially resistant to the idea of banning his family member, but after a long heart-to-heart, he's come around. He understands that the safety and well-being of my children is non-negotiable, and he's agreed to keep his distance from the convicted child toucher. It's a tough situation, but I'm glad we were able to find a solution that prioritizes my kids. Now, the issue of the deed has been the most complex. After consulting with a lawyer, we've decided to put the house in a trust with me, my husband, and mother-in-law as equal beneficiaries. This way, we all have a stake in the property, and no one can make unilateral decisions about its future. It's not exactly what I had in mind, but it's a fair compromise that protects everyone's interests. Throughout all of this, I've been reflecting on my relationship with mother-in-law and Mason. I've always known that mother-in-law is a people pleaser, but I never realized how much it's impacted her life. She's put up with a lot over the years, from Mason's drinking to his criminal history, and I can see how it's taken a toll on her. I've been trying to be more understanding and supportive, even as we navigate these difficult conversations. At the same time, I've had to confront some of my own biases and assumptions. I've always seen Mason as a bit of a loose cannon, but I've come to realize that he's a product of his upbringing and his struggles with addiction. It doesn't excuse his behavior, but it does give me a bit more empathy for his situation. I've been trying to approach our interactions with more patience and understanding, even when we disagree. As for my sister-in-law, we've had a few heart-to-hearts over the past few days. She initially thought I was being too harsh with my demands, but after explaining my reasoning and my concerns for my children's safety, she's come around. She's even offered to help us with the move and to be a sounding board as we navigate this new living arrangement. Looking back on the past few days, I realized that this experience has taught me a lot about the importance of communication and compromise. It's not always easy to have these tough conversations, but they're necessary if we want to build strong, healthy relationships with our loved ones. I'm grateful that we were able to find a way forward that works for everyone, and I'm hopeful that this move will be a positive step for our family. Thank you again for all of your support and advice. It means the world to me to have this community to turn to as I navigate these challenges. I'll keep you all updated as we move forward with this new chapter in our lives. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.